Hi, I'm Diane Greco-Allen, and I've been in communication with you for a little bit. And I've been in communication with a number of people, but I'm reaching out to you because I think you understand the gravity and nature of how childhood trauma and neglect can affect your mental health. And my purpose in life is not only about mental health, but physical health that also can affect your mental health. And what I've learned from my experience being a sibling of six, there were six in our family. I was number four. And what I learned was that my mother's health at the time of my birth affected me throughout my childhood and into my adulthood. And everything that influenced me throughout that time also affected me. So what I've learned is that our environment, what we eat, what we're exposed to throughout childhood, and even at the time of infancy, can affect the mental health and your attitude throughout life. So you may already know some of this because you've experienced it, and maybe you are only able to communicate in certain ways. And some of the things that I've learned is that the way that my mother treated my father affected me dramatically. And although I had a very loving interaction with my former husband of 28 years, there were things I found about his relationship and his parents and how they interacted with each other. So this is not just about me. This is about relationships in general. And it's about our communication with our food and nourishment. And sometimes that has been neglected dramatically throughout childhood. And what it does is it affects the brain. And so if your brain is not able to function normally, or we don't even really see normal anymore, but in the best abilities and the growth and development of the brain sometimes can be delayed, extremely delayed. So in the case of my sister, who was 10 years younger than me, and I was like a second mother to her, and I educated myself in nursing and practiced nursing for about 8 years in many parts of the hospital, and in the end worked in the intensive care unit with open heart patients. So I was in the open heart recovery room. So I interacted with many professionals, physicians, and then I saw what was going on in my own life with a practicing physician and a urologist who was a surgeon. So I understood what he was dealing with his clients and what I was dealing with burnout, and how that caregiver burnout, caring for 4 children, and also for 2 parents with cancer. So all of that put together has given me a foundation of understanding what was going on with my sister. And throughout her life, she had a lot of mental health challenges with learning. So they said it was a learning disability and that she had dyslexia. So my mother possibly, because of her health and because she loved to drink, my mom was a fun lady. She was a very fun Italian woman. But that affected my sister's mental health and possibly the development of her brain. So my mission is to look at how fetal alcohol syndrome plays out in many family scenarios, even if it is not the extreme scenario of drinking every day. Now, my mother loved, sweets, and she loved cooking, and she did a lot of things, and her heart was bigger than her brain, probably. And she was the youngest of 7. And they had a really difficult life. And in that family, her 4 brothers all were service members in the military. So that part of it, they were separated and there was a lot going on in their life. And her role as the youngest child was to make everybody happy. And that's what she did. So that's where we came into play with trying to make everybody happy, except for understanding how to care for ourselves. So I'm just giving you some background and where I've come from and what I want to do moving forward. Now, this is a picture of me and my sister with her little girl. And now that little girl is my niece and my only niece, because none of my brothers had any children, and my sister was the only one that had children, and she had a little girl, and her name is Angelina. So what I did moving forward, after I lost my license in nursing because it lapsed, literally just from caregiving, I never got everything back in order. And then I found out after being on like 15 different medications for mental health and for every dysfunction in the body you can imagine, I went into many parts of different crises, adrenal crisis and thyroid crisis, and so many things that happened, and different infections and viruses that took over my body, and black mold that actually was living in my kidneys. So, I literally almost died. Now, that happened to me at birth, and then it happened to me later on in life, and I learned what to do to move forward, and thankfully was directed by beautiful people. After hundreds and hundreds of evaluations in medicine, somebody directed me to functional medicine, and so now I am a functional medicine health coach. And so that has given me insight to understand how to coach people, how to understand how to live my life as a coach. And I thought I needed a little bit more guidance with teaching people how to cook and eat in the kitchen safely. So I was ServSafe Management certified. And that, I believe, is such a wonderful little adjunct to my education, just understanding how to be safe with foods, in which I think almost everybody should be certified with ServSafe handling. So that's something on my mission statement and that I'll be looking forward to sharing. This also, I worked with just one summer teaching how to go beyond coaching with teaching people how to cook and also for professionals. The professionals I'm speaking about are either medical professionals or healthcare professionals, maybe teachers, somewhere that you are professionally certified in your area. The other thing that I also found that was, I really thought that this was super important for me to become a functional nutrition counselor. And that has given me actually a whole new basis for my nursing, because it brought me back to that, looking at some of those really root areas that as nurses we looked at and we treated very differently. It was just treat this specific thing here with an imbalance in your calcium or your magnesium. You're doing all these different interventions in the hospital, but we get to root causes of what's causing your problems internally. And some of that is what we put in our mouth. And if you read my book, It Might Be Your Pancreas, you'll find that I have 2 hand tools that I use, 5 points of awareness and the 5 W's, and then the boundaries and the portion control. So, we want to put everything together, use the nature that's around us, find your place in life that you feel purposeful and in what your mission is. And some of us are still finding that place, and that's okay. But moving forward in the direction to know that you want to help others that are in pain. And my episodes of pancreatitis occurred because I was burnt out and I was not nourishing myself with the proper food. So that can happen, and then you don't sleep, and then the whole thing goes AWOL, and then your brain starts acting up and doing all kinds of strange things. And then sometimes you become fearful, and paranoid. And these can happen in different scenarios, in different situations, not only with yeast overgrowth, with TB, believe it or not, with all the different viruses, which Epstein-Barr virus is very high in many areas, especially in colleges and in universities. And it probably is along many different areas of the nursing home care, nursing population. And then there's also what we're looking at now is coronavirus and some of the the SARS virus, which is respiratory. And then we also have to think about shingles and the herpes virus, because there's, that whole family can sit in our nerves and come up whenever we're stressed. So I'm just giving you this little bit of information and video. I am, again, one of 6 children. My mother had a miscarriage, and we were all very close, except for there were 10 years between me and my sister, and I was sort of like her little guide, trying to help her to understand her own health. And that was very difficult because she wanted me to be a sister and not a mother, but I was sort of like a nurse mother, and those relationships can get very tricky in our lives. So Diane Greco-Allen is my name. If I've talked to you, I am grateful for you. And if I've said anything that may have sounded a little bit off, there are days that I am overwhelmed also, and also juggling to prioritize what is necessary for my own health and well-being. Have a beautiful day. And one of the things that I do want to mention is Stand Up. Some of the groups that I want to get attached to are related to addiction and rehab, sustainable ways to hold on to where you need to be without alcohol and drugs. And so I will soon be practicing as a drugless practitioner, and I hope that some of the information that I can share with you will help me get the grants I need to perform what I want to do in a suitable environment to help with mindful cooking and eating, because we all have to eat to fuel ourselves for the next day and to reboot at night. Thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate any valuable information or suggestions that you have, and I wish you well on this beautiful day. Thanks.